Greetings, comrades. It is I, Miriam, the only Miriam, and thank you so much for tuning in. So today we once again have another sort of Armenian themed story time. Well, excuse me, I have paint on my nails. Oops. But today we once again have an Armenian sort of story time. Before we get started, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click on the zangak or the bell icon to receive notifications from this channel. Go ahead and comment down below how all you lovely comrades have been doing. Seriously, go ahead and comment anything down below. Check out the description box down below for links to previous videos. You all can find me on Instagram right over here. And as always, thank you very much, Շատ շնորհակալություն, for the recent support. I deeply appreciate it. So, first things first, I was born in America. I was actually the very first person in my family to be born in America. So I guess I'm an all-American girl, right? And I consider myself to be an Armenian American. But here's the deal. I'm an Armenian who is also American. I'm not an American who just so happened to be Armenian. And the reason why I share this is not only to give a bit of background info, but because I feel as if many people would watch this video, and because I am born in America, state that my experience with learning English isn't the most authentic or not of one of an immigrant. I know that my story of learning English as an Armenian wouldn't be the same as an Armenian immigrant's experience, but I am merely here to share my life story and the many difficulties I've faced with becoming culturally or actually Armenian American. I know this may sound like a very bizarre notion, but I believe that assimilation or how acclimated you are within a certain culture or society is on a spectrum. And I believe that you don't necessarily have to be from outside America or a certain country to not be fully acclimated with a certain culture or be fully assimilated in a sense. Despite me being born here, I was very sheltered as a child, and I grew up in a very, very Armenian household. I was really never exposed to American media or culture or practices very early on in my childhood. I know somebody watching this could say, how is that so? Like, you were born here and such, but many don't understand that even if you were born in a certain country or into a certain society, based on things such as your household or what you're exposed to as a child or where your parents came from, that can very much so determine how assimilated you are within a society. I will likely keep explaining this notion over and over again, but I cannot stress how true it is. Obviously, as I've mentioned before, my first language was Armenian, and we also spoke Russian at home because 75% of Armenians speak it, and I have so much family from the former Soviet Union. And we also do have some extended family that are Russian or married to Russians and such. And so English is my third language, but I actually did not learn it until I went to school. You see, I always assumed that I was just horrible at speaking English as a child, but when my mother told me the story a few years ago of how I learned English when I first went to preschool, it all started to make sense to me. But what happened was my mother enrolled me in preschool when I was around 4 or 3.5 years old. And when I went there, as crazy as it sounds, when I first went there, I knew only like 10 words in English, and they were all from these cartoons that I used to watch. Like, I knew very basic things apparently, like hi or hello, or very childish phrases, I suppose. And my Armenian mother had to explain to the teacher that, oh, I'm sorry, my child doesn't speak English. We speak Armenian at home. We're going to try to teach her now. And my teacher actually apparently had no issue, and she apparently said something like, oh, like, just take care of the Armenian at home, we'll take care of the English here, which in hindsight is very endearing. Like, that really does warm my heart that someone who was not Armenian wanted to help us preserve my motherland's culture while also helping me acclimate in this new American society that I was entering. And so I don't have many memories from preschool, but I'm going to be perfectly honest, like, when I look back, so many of them seem like a blur to me, in a sense where, you know, I wasn't fully fluent at the time until a few weeks or a few months passed. But when I look back, I don't know how to verbalize it, but I just don't remember much in English. I'm being perfectly honest. Like, obviously so many words stick out to me and such, but it just doesn't register in English, if that makes any sense. Honestly, by the time I was in kindergarten, I spoke fluent English, and my mother really made sure to properly teach me how to read, how to write, and how to utilize the English language just like how I did with Armenian. But you see, the story doesn't end there. Yes, I was fluent in English at quite an early age, but there were still so many things that I struggled with. Like, to this day, I don't understand sentence structure in like any language I speak. Like, even to this day, there have been moments in class where I go ask my English teacher how to phrase a certain sentence or where to place an adverb and such. When I was younger, I really also struggled with how I would translate everything from Armenian over to English. A lot of the times, I can't even say sometimes, the sentences made no sense because, once again, like, I just didn't know how to work with the sentence structure, and I didn't know where to place certain words because in Armenian, we have 7 grammar cases, so you can really switch around where you place a certain word in the sentence, and it does change the position of the other words, but English has 3 grammar cases, and we don't even use one of them, so it's really 2, and you can't really translate too many things from Armenian over to English. I don't know how to explain this because this was such a while ago when I was in elementary school and such, but I would really struggle with properly forming sentences or phrasing them properly, like, and I had such a strong accent as a child. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't know if my accent was just that strong or if people gave such an overreaction. All throughout elementary and like middle school, I was so brutally castigated for sounding like such a foreigner. People in class would pretend like they didn't understand what I was saying, or they would try to correct me, or they would say, oh, your grammar is so horrible, or oh, you butchered this, or that sentence doesn't make any sense. Okay, we get it, my English was so broken, but like you try speaking 2 other languages. I don't mean to victimize myself, and I know that so many people go through so much worse, but there were, for so many years, I could also feel such silent judgment from monolinguals or non-Armenians whenever I spoke to them. And I could really feel this sort of curiosity, but also like disdain for somebody who doesn't sound all American or sounds like they're from some sort of different background. I just really don't understand why people go so out of their way to be so disrespectful to someone over something that really isn't that negative. Let's be perfectly honest. How is somebody having an accent a horrible thing? If they're actually putting effort into learning your country's language and are thus praising your country's culture, then why are you so bitter? Like, why do you care so much if my English is so broken? I also apparently had this issue like very early on, in early elementary school, I suppose, where I would jumble words together in English. My mom had to work with me on that. I don't think anybody could tell, but for so many years in my life, I was so terrified of speaking in front of people or speaking in English or having people ask about my accent and my background. This is a story that I will discuss another time, but majority of my life, I really hated being Armenian. And even though I was culturally Armenian, not knowing my identity was really something that was ruining my life, and that's a story for another time. But having an accent is one thing, but when you're not comfortable with where that accent is from and such, that is just an entirely different issue on its own. Also, interestingly enough, when I was a child, I would listen to how British people spoke, and I'm not saying that I started to speak like this or something, but I would really listen to the vocabulary they utilized, and I tried to not speak like I was British, but speak very properly. I also believe that this is why I got into the habit of using O in front of every sentence. And I suppose that I still do this to this present day, but I use very rich or very complex vocabulary or phrases when speaking English. I know this may sound really bizarre, but I don't think it was until high school where my English became so much better. You see, I had always been fluent. I believe that I found a new way to really correct myself if I made some sort of mistake. I also have this issue in all the languages I speak where I will think of something and like the words come out before they're supposed to, if that makes any sense. Or I know it's very impulsive when speaking, I suppose. So like, I know words will just fly out when I least expect it, or
that's weird.
I suppose the best way to describe it would be that the order of what I would like to verbalize or say becomes very much so thrown off. I don't know, I've always said this, but I feel as if speaking is one of the things that I can do the very best, but also the very worst. But it's something I do far too much. I always felt as if I had to speak so much more proper and so much more of an intellectual or diplomatic manner so that people wouldn't look down on me or assume that I was not that educated or something of that sort. So to this day, people will be very surprised at my diction and such, and I actually take it as a compliment. Is it pretentious of me? I suppose, but I really do believe that it was this sort of like linguistic coping mechanism that I formed as a child. Also, it is absolutely hilarious whenever people try to somehow guess where my accent is from. In the last 10 months alone, people have assumed that I have a Russian accent, a British accent, or that I have a city accent, or that I'm from like New York or New Jersey, that I have a French accent. Y'all are very much so jumping from country to country. I guess this makes me Mr. Worldwide, huh?
Bada boom, Mr. Worldwide, when I step up in a room, darling.
And I suppose that there really has been a return on investment or an ROI on speaking different languages or just sounding very foreign in general, because the same people that used to make fun of my accent are now the ones who say things like, wow, how do you know so many languages? That's so cool. To be honest, most people in America will study Spanish all throughout their educational careers, but can barely say hello. And y'all really had the audacity to have an issue with me trying to be a young polyglot. Because there was even an incident recently where this one girl who used to make fun of how I speak, or would quite literally try to teach me how to properly pronounce certain words, reached out for help on this English class assignment. And I quite literally read her message and just didn't respond. Like, if I'm so foreign and my English is so horrible that you have to go out of your way and start being an English teacher for me, then you go ahead and figure it out yourself. Come back to me when you speak Armenian. Come back when you can speak Russian. Come back when you can speak French or German or everything else that I would like to learn. I will also admit that something that greatly helped me become not just more culturally American or more assimilated was also being exposed to more American television or pop culture or various slang expressions. But this was when I was much older in life. You know, I didn't watch my first Hannah Montana episode until I turned 12 years old. And growing up, I was only permitted to watch Armenian or Soviet style cartoons. And this was when everyone else got to view things like Disney Channel or Cartoon Network or all these other very American shows that I could only view when I was at a friend's house or when I was at my grandparents' place. Once again, I don't mean to complain, but y'all would be astounded by the amount that I was castigated by my American classmates for not knowing certain shows or not watching certain things or not understanding certain pop culture references. Like, have y'all heard of Chiburashka? Do you know about the Sour Cream Village? Like, y'all didn't grow up watching Nupagati. I don't want to hear any of it. Something else I don't understand that has really been a theme all throughout my English learning journey and such has been the fact that I don't understand why I still have a bit of an accent. I know so many people might question me for saying that, but then again, people who tell me that I don't have an accent are usually immigrants or like my Armenian grandmother that learned English overseas. But it genuinely doesn't make sense to me because I've met people that were born in Russia or Armenia or even India, and they speak such fluent English and they sound so American, but there's me who really doesn't. So notice that maybe perhaps because I'm older or because people, do eventually change once they grow and mature, that people now are much kinder to me about having an accent than before. I don't know, I suppose that I've also just learned how to work with it or how to not use certain words that I don't pronounce properly, apparently. Or previously mentioned, I've also learned how to really recover if I somehow have some sort of slip up when speaking English, or if I make some sort of grammatical mistake. I mean, now that I look back, I can't change the past. I suppose that all of this was character building, and I entirely understand why I wasn't taught English until I went to school, because cultural preservation is ever so important as an Armenian. I entirely agree with how my parents wanted me to preserve my own mother tongue and such before going out into a world that really will culturally swallow you up and will often make you forget your own roots. Also, final thought, I must say, I really do think that English is such a peculiar language. Like, it does not follow set grammar rules. It's very irregular and such, but it's really the language for expressing yourself or saying very bizarre things and such. Like, I feel as if you can do so much with this language. It's a very comedic language, but it can also be very diplomatic and such. Anyways, that is all for today. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all very soon. Շատ շնորհակալություն եւ կտեսնվենք. That's it.